Florida's real estate industry does not want you to see this video, because the moment you realize retirees in small inland Florida towns are living richer, fuller, more connected lives than the ones paying premium HOA fees in the big-name retirement meccas, you start wondering who actually benefits from steering everyone toward the same 6 zip codes. I spent months driving the back roads of this state looking for the towns where retirees aren't just surviving, they're actually thriving, not tolerating Florida, not enduring the heat until the next doctor's appointment, actually flourishing. I found a town where the whole downtown shuts down for a strawberry festival that predates most of the state's interstates. I found a citrus town where the median age skews so old that the high school actually struggles to field a marching band. I found a lakefront community where retirees run their own tomato canning operation out of a community center kitchen. And I found a beach town so unbothered by tourism that the biggest weekend event is a shrimp boat blessing. If you want to know where retirees are genuinely happy instead of just genuinely present, hit that subscribe button because we're counting down 12 unpopular Florida towns where retirement actually works. Number 12. Wauchula. When I first drove into Wauchula, I kept waiting for the town to reveal its punchline, the thing that would explain why nobody talks about it. It never came. This is Hardee County's seat, a citrus and cattle town of about 5,000 people sitting on the Peace River, roughly an hour southeast of Tampa. The median home price hovers around $190,000, which in most of Florida wouldn't cover a down payment. Wauchula's cost of living runs comfortably below the national average, and the town still operates like agriculture matters here, because it does. Cattle auctions happen on Wednesdays. The courthouse square looks like it hasn't been remodeled since Eisenhower, and that's a compliment. Retirees I spoke with kept mentioning the same thing, that nobody's in a hurry, and nobody expects you to be either. The Peace River offers fossil hunting, and locals casually mention finding shark teeth millions of years old the way you'd mention finding a good parking spot. Hardee County Hospital handles routine care, and Bartow and Winter Haven pick up anything more serious, about 40 minutes away. I sat outside a feed store drinking gas station coffee with a retired citrus grower who told me he'd looked at Sarasota, decided the traffic alone would take a year off his life, and moved to Wauchula instead. He hasn't second-guessed it since. Number 11. Arcadia. Arcadia bills itself as the rodeo capital of Florida, and after watching the Arcadia All-Florida Championship Rodeo, I am not inclined to argue. This DeSoto County town of around 7,500 people sits on the Peace River about an hour east of Sarasota, and it has held on to a genuine cattle and cowboy identity that most of Florida traded away decades ago. The rodeo has run continuously since 1929, making it one of the oldest in the country, and every March and July, this sleepy downtown fills with real working cowboys instead of costume ones. Home prices average around $210,000, and the Antique District downtown, one of the largest in the state, gives retirees a genuine reason to wander every weekend instead of just existing between doctor visits. Arcadia got hammered by Hurricane Ian in 2022, and the recovery has been slow in places, so it is worth asking pointed questions about flood history before you buy. But the community response afterward, neighbors literally rebuilding neighbors' porches, is the kind of thing that tells you what this town actually values. I met a retired school teacher restringing a fence with her neighbor's grown son, and when I asked why he was helping, he just shrugged and said, "She used to feed my dog when I worked nights." That is Arcadia in one sentence. Number 10. Frostproof. Yes, that's the real name, and yes, the story behind it is exactly what you're picturing. Frostproof sits in Polk County between two lakes, Lake Clinch and Lake Reedy, and the town got its name because early citrus growers noticed this particular ridge of land somehow avoided the worst freezes that wrecked groves elsewhere. The elevation and lake effect created a natural microclimate, and citrus farmers bet their livelihoods on it. About 3,000 people live here now, and the median home price sits around $215,000, a genuine bargain for lakefront access in Central Florida. Frostproof still hosts an annual fish fry festival that's been running since the 1950s, and the town's Bud Larson Model Airport draws in a small but devoted community of retired hobbyist pilots who fly in on weekends just to eat pancakes. The cost of living runs roughly 10% below the national average, and the pace here is unmistakably rural lake town, which either sounds like heaven or a slow death depending on your personality. For retirees who fish, this is close to paradise. Lake Clinch is stocked and quiet, and I watched 3 separate retirees pull bass out of the water in under an hour, without any of them acknowledging each other existed, which felt like its own kind of contentment. Number 9. Umatilla. Tucked in Lake County, near the Ocala National Forest, Umatilla is the kind of town that gets driven past on the way to somewhere else, usually Mount Dora, and that's exactly why it works. Population sits around 3,700, and the town markets itself, only slightly ironically, as the gateway to the Ocala National Forest, which gives retirees direct access to hundreds of thousands of acres of hiking trails, freshwater springs, and lakes without paying Mount Dora prices for the privilege. Median home values run around $260,000, still noticeably cheaper than its more famous neighbor 15 minutes away. The town holds an annual Black Bear Festival, which sounds like a joke until you remember the Ocala National Forest has one of the densest black bear populations in the eastern United States, and locals treat bear sightings with the same shrug most people reserve for squirrels. Florida Hospital Waterman in Tavares covers serious medical needs about 20 minutes out. I talked to a retired postal worker fishing off a dock on Lake Umatilla, who told me he moved from Orlando specifically because he wanted quiet mornings and cheap property taxes, and got both without giving up a real grocery store or a real doctor. Number 8. Howey in the Hills. This one might have the single best name-to-reality ratio in the entire state. Howey in the Hills sits on the rolling terrain of the Lake Wales Ridge in Lake County, and unlike most of Florida, there is genuine elevation change here, enough that the town built its identity around a golf resort called Mission Inn that sprawls across actual hills. Population hovers under 1,200, making this one of the smallest towns on this list, and the intimacy shows. Everybody actually does know everybody. Home prices land in the $300,000 to $400,000 range, higher than some entries here, but you are buying genuine topography and lakefront access on Little Lake Harris, which connects into the Harris chain of lakes. The town was founded by citrus baron William Howey in the 1920s, and his original vision of a citrus utopia never quite panned out the way he imagined. But what is left is a walkable, hilly, oddly charming little town that draws retirees who specifically want something that does not look or feel like flat Florida. I stood on a bluff near the old Citrus Tower access road and watched the sun set over 3 different lakes at once, and understood immediately why people who find this town rarely leave it. If you are finding value in this so far, do me a favor and drop a like. It genuinely helps this video reach people who are trying to figure out where to actually enjoy retirement instead of just affording it. Now let's keep going. Number 7. Zephyr Hills. Zephyr Hills gets a bad reputation it doesn't entirely deserve, mostly because people confuse it with the bottled water brand that shares its name and assume it's some corporate company town. It isn't. This Pasco County city of about 17,000 sits 30 minutes northeast of Tampa, and it's become one of the most quietly popular retirement destinations in the region, precisely because it never markets itself as one. Median home prices run around $290,000, and the cost of living stays close to the national average while still delivering proximity to Tampa's hospitals and airport. Zephyr Hills has a genuinely active downtown with a farmer's market every Saturday, and the Zephyr Hills Depot Museum preserves the old rail history that built the town in the first place. What surprised me most was the skydiving. Zephyr Hills is home to one of the busiest skydiving operations in the country, And on a clear weekend, you'll see dozens of parachutes drifting down over a town where the median age is well into the 60s. I asked a retired police officer sipping coffee outside a diner whether the skydivers bothered anyone, and he laughed and said half the retirees in town have jumped at least once themselves. That's not the image most people have of small-town Florida retirement, and that's exactly the point. Number 6. Green Cove Springs. This one sits on the St. Johns River in Clay County, about 30 minutes south of Jacksonville, and it might be the single most underrated riverfront retirement town in North Florida. Population is around 9,000, and the town's namesake spring, a large sulfur spring that once anchored a resort economy in the late 1800s, still flows today, though the grand hotels that used to surround it are long gone. Median home prices run around $280,000, genuinely reasonable for direct St. Johns River access. Green Cove Springs has leaned hard into its historic downtown, restoring the old Clay County Courthouse and turning the waterfront park into a genuine community gathering space with a fishing pier and a boat ramp that locals use constantly. Retirees here get the benefit of Jacksonville's full medical infrastructure without Jacksonville's traffic or cost of living. I spent an evening at the waterfront park watching a group of retirees play dominoes at a picnic table while the sun set behind river barges, and nobody once looked at their phone. In this economy, that alone might be worth the move. Number 5. DeLand. DeLand surprised me more than almost any other town on this list because it manages to be a genuine college town, home to Stetson University, while also somehow functioning as one of Central Florida's most livable retirement spots. Population sits around 37,000, larger than most towns on this countdown. But the historic downtown keeps the small town feel intact, with brick streets, a restored 1920s courthouse, and an arts scene that punches well above its size. Median home values run around $340,000, higher than the smaller entries here, but you're getting a real hospital system, Advent Health DeLand, a full university's worth of lectures and events open to the public, and proximity to both Orlando and the coast, without the price tag of either. The town hosts a monthly art walk that draws crowds without becoming a tourist trap, and the surrounding area includes access to Blue Spring State Park, one of the best manatee viewing spots in the state during winter. I talked to a retired professor who moved here specifically because she wanted intellectual stimulation without giving up small-town quiet, and she told me she audits a Stetson course nearly every semester, something she never expected to still be doing in her 70s. Number 4. Fernandina Beach. Way up on Amelia Island near the Georgia border, Fernandina Beach might be the most overlooked barrier island town in the entire state, mostly because everyone's attention gets pulled toward the more famous beaches further south. The population is around 12,000, and the historic downtown looks genuinely Victorian, with brick streets and gas lamp-style lighting that wasn't manufactured for tourists. It's original. Median home prices run higher here, around $520,000, reflecting genuine barrier island real estate, but rentals and inland options bring the actual cost of living down for retirees willing to live a short drive from the water instead of directly on it. The shrimping industry that built this town is still visible on the working waterfront, and the annual Isle of Eight Flags Shrimp Festival remains one of the oldest and most beloved events on the First Coast. Baptist Medical Center Nassau handles most healthcare needs in town, with Jacksonville's full hospital system about 30 minutes south. I walked the historic district at dusk and watched a group of retirees, all clearly regulars, gather on a porch with folding chairs and a cooler, doing nothing but talking as the shrimp boats came in. Nobody was performing contentment for a camera. It just existed. Number 3, Dunedin. Dunedin gets mentioned occasionally, but it never gets the credit it deserves relative to its more famous neighbor, Clearwater, sitting just a few minutes south. This Pinellas County town of about 36,000 leans hard into its Scottish heritage, with a genuinely walkable downtown, a direct connection to the Pinellas Trail, and access to the Gulf, without Clearwater Beach's tourist density. Median home prices run around $460,000, reflecting genuine coastal Pinellas real estate. But the town's small business-heavy downtown and lack of high-rise development keep it feeling like an actual community instead of a resort strip. Dunedin hosts the Highland Games every spring, complete with bagpipes and caber tossing, and the town's craft brewery scene has become a genuine draw, with retirees treating brewery patios the way earlier generations treated the front porch. Honeymoon Island and Caladaisy Island State Park sit just offshore, giving beach access without the crowds of St. Pete Beach. I sat at a brewery table next to a retired couple from Ohio who told me they chose Dunedin specifically because they could walk to dinner, walk to the water, and walk to a doctor's appointment, all without ever getting back in a car, something neither of them expected to find in Florida. Number 2, New Smyrna Beach. New Smyrna Beach has quietly become one of the most beloved retirement towns on the Atlantic side of the state, and it's managed to do this without turning into Daytona. Population sits around 27,000, and the town keeps a deliberate low-rise skyline. No towering condos blocking the beach view, which locals fought hard to preserve through decades of zoning battles. Median home prices run around $430,000, still noticeably below comparable coastal towns further south. The historic Canal Street district downtown has become a genuine arts and dining hub, and the surfing culture here is real, not manufactured, with New Smyrna regularly ranked among the best surf towns on the East Coast. Advent Health New Smyrna Beach handles most medical needs, with Orlando's full hospital system about 50 minutes inland if anything serious comes up. What struck me most was watching retirees actually surf. Not metaphorically, actually paddling out at dawn alongside 20-somethings, completely unbothered by the age gap. I talked to a 71-year-old former airline pilot coming out of the water who told me he took up surfing at 65 because he figured if he was going to live near the ocean, he might as well actually use it. That attitude might be the entire thesis of this town. Before I give you number 1, if you've made it this far, you clearly care about doing retirement right instead of just doing it cheap. Subscribe to the channel because I cover towns like these every single week, and there's another list coming that might change where you're looking entirely. Number 1, Venice. I'm putting Venice at the top of this list because it might be the single best executed retirement town in the entire state. And somehow it still doesn't get talked about the way Naples or Sarasota does. Venice sits on the Gulf Coast in Sarasota County, population around 25,000. And the town was actually master planned in the 1920s by the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers as a retirement community for railroad workers, which means Venice has been building specifically for retirees for nearly a century. That head start shows. The downtown is Mediterranean revival architecture, walkable, low traffic, and genuinely beautiful without feeling artificial. Median home prices run around $480,000, on the higher end for this list, but the town's amenities justify it in ways few coastal towns can match. Venice calls itself the shark tooth capital of the world, and the beaches here are covered in fossilized shark teeth that wash up constantly, giving retirees a genuinely fun daily ritual instead of just a scenic backdrop. Sarasota Memorial Hospital's Venice campus gives full-service healthcare directly in town. The Legacy Trail runs through Venice, giving cyclists and walkers direct access up towards Sarasota. I walked the beach at sunrise and counted 11 separate retirees on their hands and knees combing for shark teeth, all of them smiling, none of them in a hurry. That image, more than any statistic I found, is what convinced me Venice earned the top spot. This is a town that was built for retirement from the ground up, and 100 years later, it still delivers exactly what it promised. So there you have it, 12 unpopular Florida towns where retirees aren't just getting by, they're genuinely flourishing. Some of these places have a few thousand people. Some of them have hills, actual hills in Florida. All of them prove that a good retirement isn't about the biggest name or the flashiest marketing. It's about finding a town that was actually built or has actually adapted to make people happy. If this video helped you rethink where retirement could actually work for you, subscribe to the channel. I cover the best places to live, retire, and invest in Florida every single week, and the next list is going to surprise you even more than this one did. I'll see you in the next video.